This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, we now bring you a discussion on the new Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The participants are T.R. Ramachandran, political analyst, and Neelabh Srivastava, journalist.
The elections to the post of the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha were held today, and the NDA candidate, Mr. Harivansh Narayan Singh, who is the first time MP to Rajya Sabha also, has won the elections by a margin of 20 votes, which he got 125 votes, while the opposition candidate, Mr. B.K. Hariprasad of the Congress, got 105 votes. This vacancy was necessitated because Mr. P.J. Kurian, who was the Deputy Chairman, had retired on July 1st. So the NDA obviously had a numerical edge in these elections. Mr. Ramachandran, I would like to know from you, how do you see the entire floor management and the entire numbers that were stacked against? There was a lot of clear indication that the NDA-led candidate would win.
Listen, I don't think there was any doubt about the floor management by the BJP strategists lacked anything. On the other hand, the Congress did seem to lack in the kind of push that they needed to give. The BJP has had a disadvantage from day one since it came to power in 2014 with a majority of its own in the Lok Sabha, but it lacked a majority in the Rajya Sabha, and that has been a factor which has been stopping them from taking up several of the major bills that they have been intending to come forward with. That being a handicap, the entire effort of Prime Minister has been to see how to bridge this gap and turn disadvantage in the Rajya Sabha into a majority. That has not really worked so far. But even then, there is a marked improvement than what it was when they began in 2014. Nevertheless, I think they are kind of at a slightly disadvantageous position as far as the Rajya Sabha is concerned in terms of numerical strength in the House. Now, as far as today's election of Deputy Chairman is concerned, I think the BJP and the NDA has done extremely well. Given the composition of the votes in the Rajya Sabha and the fact that several of the parties who were expected not to really go along with the candidate of the BJP, I think the masterstroke of Prime Minister was essentially that they picked on a JDU candidate recommended by the Chief Minister of Bihar. And I think it was entirely intended also to send a signal to the partners of the BJP-led NDA, some of whom were rather disgruntled. The Akali Dal is one of them, the Shiv Sena is another, to say that, we are willing to accommodate all our partners. And it's very evident why the signal is being sent out in unambiguous terms. But I think the positive side of that is that this person, the JDU candidate, is considered to be very close to the late Chandrasekhar, former Prime Minister, and also that he is some kind of a protege to the late S.P. Singh, one of the best known Hindi journalists in this country and a great TV presenter and commentator as well. I think the Prime Minister paid encomiums to him as to how he, even without becoming a parliamentarian, he wrote columns as to how a parliamentarian should conduct himself in the two houses of parliament and his nature of duties and responsibilities. And he owes it to his electorate to deliver on the promises that he makes. And I think the Prime Minister did point to that finally he's on the other side of the fence, and hopefully he will bring to the fore some of these qualities that we MPs should have in us in delivering our duties and responsibilities.
The numbers that were stacked on both the sides, a lot of groundwork was done so that the desired candidate of both the camps obviously wins. But we were seeing that a lot of phone calls went from the central government, as in the Prime Minister, the BJP President also calling, other ministers also working overtime and talking to a lot of chief ministers of different political parties. Case in example being the Biju Janata Dal, Naveen Patnaik a day before said that they would be voting for the NDA candidate. So a lot of groundwork was done to actually see the result that we see today now.
Well, Neelabh, I don't think you can really question that, because that is how the strategy is really put into place if you want to win. And I think what really makes the difference is the BJP leadership or the strategists knew that they were at a disadvantage in the Rajya Sabha numerically. So they took it upon themselves to work overtime to try and convince those who were not in line with their thinking that they should vote for a candidate that they have chosen, recommended by none other than the JDU, And therefore, I think, given the personality of the candidate, who is a veteran journalist and has shown his mettle as a journalist, that they should vote him, as he's not one of those candidates who have been backed and pushed by the RSS or any other grouping within the BJP. And I think it did pay dividends. The Congress could have also done that if its leaders had concentrated on certain political parties. They may not be big in number, but I think that it was very crucial. I agree with you. And the other thing is that at least one member of the Aam Aadmi Party was very open in saying, we did not get one single call, nor was there anybody from the Congress who had the courtesy even to thank us if we did support them. I think at the end of the day, this matters. This kind of behind-the-scenes play of leaders making calls or speaking to them when they come face-to-face does encourage. I think whether we like it or not, I have not really gone into the actual record of the votes. But the chairman did allow a complete re-poll within the floor of the House, because there were a lot of complaints of members that their votes had not been registered. And the second time that it was done, the chairman made it a point to ensure that there were no complaints and that everybody was satisfied. So if you recount the votes after the papers were taken, papers were handed over, corrections made, and a recount done, the margin of victory of the BJP-led NDA candidate went up a few notches above what it was in the first round. So therefore, I think it is self-evident what needs to be done. The BJP, under other circumstances, may have had trepidations, but in this case, it supported the candidate recommended by the JDU and made no bones about it. It also went on to say that our ideology coincides with that of the JDU and Mr. Nitish Kumar. So I think therein, despite the differences with the BJP-led NDA, they did opt to vote for a candidate who belonged to the NDA.
Mr. Harivansh Narayan Singh is a first-time MP, almost 4 decades in journalism and then very recently into the Rajya Sabha. Mr. Ramachandran, what exactly is the job of a deputy chairman? How does he manage the House in the absence of the chairman? This would, all of your umpteen number of years reporting these subjects, seeing very closely these subjects, how does a deputy chairman manage the House? What are his challenges?
I would actually view the deputy chairman's job as being the kingpin in running the House of Elders, the Rajya Sabha in particular. The chairman of the House does come in first thing in the morning, starts the House, takes some goes through the motions of the first hour by question hour and other things which are important, 0 hour and so forth. And then the Vice President does have other pressing issues that he needs to attend to. The rest of the day is entirely the responsibility of the Deputy Chairman. I don't think by any stretch of imagination it is an easy job. It is a very ticklish job. You need tremendous sagacity, patience, and understanding to keep the House going. And this assumes greater importance and significance, especially when the ruling party doesn't have an advantage of arithmetic in the upper house. And you need the guile and the wisdom to keep things on course so that it doesn't go out of hand. Over the last few years, or at least over the last year and two, we have seen that some of these sessions have been virtual washouts because the opposition doesn't want the House to function because it believes that its point is not being heard or the government is not trying to do what it really wants the government to do.
We've seen sessions where there have been washouts day after another.
This happened before the BJP came to power in 2014. We are all aware that prior to the elections, the budget session, except for allowing the budget to be passed, was a complete washout. And the BJP went on record innumerable number of times to say that this is their birthright. They are doing it democratically. They are not doing anything that is undemocratic, and that to ensure their voices are heard, they felt that this was the one way of doing it, disrupting the House. The other side of the question is that you are wasting the time and money, and after all, this is the taxpayers' money, and such things should not happen. And everybody from all sections, despite all this, has gone on to say that it will be our endeavor to conduct the House in a very proper manner so that the business of the House is conducted and matters of urgent public importance is taken up, discussed, and solutions to problems are found.
Bills are passed.
And quite a substantial number of bills have been passed. It is not that they have not been passed. But I think we do have certain periods when the agitation is virtually taken to the other extreme and nothing is allowed to be passed. And such periods have occurred in the recent, at least in 2014. And I think the need is to really reach some kind of an understanding to ensure that there's some measure or ways are found to ameliorate the lot of the poor. And that is what the biggest, after all, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha are the biggest legislatures in the country. Everything emanates from here. So I think those elected by the people, sent to houses, have a responsibility to the people at large who have sent them over here. And I think to that extent, the Deputy Chairman who has written about it at great length would be able to, I am sure he will be able, not that the members themselves do not know, but I'm sure, given that he's a veteran journalist, has the respect of the reading public. Not only that, he also has a fan following among several politicians, irrespective of their party affiliations, can have an impact on the overall conduct of the House.
The election happened today, which is the second penultimate day of the end of the current session of the Parliament. Tomorrow the House adjourns sine die and then we take it up the next time. But the action and the entire acumen that we see of the Deputy Chairman now coming into play happens in the next session. As you have already said that the numerical odds have been there for the government in Rajya Sabha as compared to Lok Sabha. You think these bills and the business of the House that would come in the next sessions would be far more easier or maybe a better maneuvering for the government to conduct in the upper house?
Listen, it is not my contention that those who are presently looking after or overseeing the conduct of the House are doing a bad job. No, not at all. I think everybody who's in the chair, especially the chairpersons of the two houses, have been doing their job as best as they can given the circumstances. At the same time, I think having been a journalist with considerable experience, having had the association to be with politicians as well, and now that he has been elected to the upper house for the first time, and it is not that he's entirely a novice to be entering the Rajya Sabha. Well, I think he will bring some experience of his into play to ensure that the House maintains a certain calm and serenity and is able to discharge its functions as delivering the kind of solutions that the people want. After all, we are passing through a phase where there is turbulence all over, not just in India, but there is certain amount of turbulence and expectancy all around. So I think to that extent, maybe he is able to carry forward his day. And it is by and large, everybody who spoke and congratulated the new Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha had lot of praise for him. Not just from the Prime Minister, but from the leader of the House, Mr. Arun Jaitley, from the Congress leader, Mr. Azad, and several others, including the SP and so on. And I think to have begun on such a good note, while people have really told him that the new Deputy Chairman, that they will cooperate with him, is, I think, starting on a very positive note.
Yeah, that's a very good positive note to start with, and we hope that the Rajya Sabha is obviously benefited from this particular election that has happened and the new person in chair. We hope that the session goes on as good as it can be. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramachandran.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on the new Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The participants were T.R. Ramachandran, political analyst, and Neelabh Srivastava, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdaytalks@gmail.com.